Okay, formally we start today's session. It is because probably yesterday Kelvin had some commitment and Fatma was also in morning, so we probably decided that we will have class on Friday and you people are in time. We had to start 1 hour earlier and we are starting at 1 hour earlier. Yesterday, we covered the material as much as this slide. This was the last slide we were discussing. Fatma, did you have any time to review the previous two lectures?
Honestly, no. Sorry, but definitely tonight after this one, I will go through the shared video. I like
Okay.
the shared with
Yeah,
YouTube things. And
yeah,
if there was any question, I will let you know.
sure, sure, sure. So I hope you have the YouTube link which I sent you.
Yes, I have.
Okay, okay. So all the lectures except for today, they are there on, and you can all of you can view it. I don't know why
Okay.
Alexandra is not here. Fatma, are you all right now? Is it I know this was
Um,
great grief.
yeah, I am. Yeah, somehow it's so difficult, but yes. Um,
Right. Okay. So while Alexandra joins us, we will continue. We had started lesson number 2 and we were discussing a method which is called stakeholder mapping. And for that, we discussed that there is a flat 2D model which is called um, power interest grid, or it could be power interest grid, it could be power or influence group, or impact and influence group grid, because there are only two major features or parameters on which you want to judge all the stakeholders, and you draw a two-dimensional graph, interest on one side, that is the x-axis, and power on y-axis, right? And you locate the level of interest a stakeholder has and the level of power that stakeholder has, and accordingly, you will draw a point at the intersection, and that might look something like, for example, there is a stakeholder I place here. I hope you can see this. It is not very clear. Can you see a star in below manage closely?
yeah, I can see it's yellow thingy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. These I am making many stars. So these are various stakeholders with different interest level and different power level. So once I plotted all the stakeholders on this graph, then I divide the whole screen into 4 quadrants. Naturally, the top right quadrant is the one with the highest level of interest and highest level of power. So all the stakeholders which are there in the top right quadrant, they are to be managed closely. And who are they? This one and this one, right? This one and this one. Now, who are the stakeholders who are high in power but low in interest? This is the top left quadrant. And we have got 3 stakeholders here, and we have to keep them satisfied. Then we have in the lower right quadrant only one stakeholder, and the strategy about that stakeholder would be to keep them engaged or keep them informed. Don't leave them alone, but at least pay them attention, engage them, involve them, and take them along. Though they may not exercise a lot of power, but they are to be kept informed. Then there are three stakeholders in the lowest bottom left quadrant. These three stakeholders, they are least in interest and least in power. So we don't have to take any direct action, but we have to watch them. We have to monitor them carefully. Why? Because stakeholders tend to change their position of interest and power during the life of a project. So I was explaining last time that a stakeholder like this stakeholder, after a while, the project has started, this stakeholder may like to start moving towards this direction. And after some time, you find him moving upwards. And maybe at a later stage, this stakeholder crosses over and goes to the top right quadrant. But this line is not actually shown. I'm just trying to timeline the role of stakeholder on this grid. So I'm trying to say that a stakeholder interest and power levels may change over time during the life of a project, and we will monitor all of them very carefully. And as any stakeholder position changes, we start dealing with them accordingly. For example, if this stakeholder has moved now after some time to this place, then probably we will start keeping them informed. And maybe when he moves to the top left quadrant, we start, keeping them satisfied. So that's how this thing is happening. On the other hand, we also talked about another method, which is a little bit more detailed, and that is where we try to analyze the stakeholders on three parameters. Now, generally, two parameters will work, and the grid method is all right with us. But if we have more than two, rather three parameters, we probably have to change our strategy, because we can't really show them on a piece of graph, on a piece of paper, because paper has only two axes, x and y axis. Now the third parameter has to go in the third dimension, and that would be, Fatma, where should it go? The third
Sorry,
parameter. What about the third parameter? Where would it go? Interest goes to the right, power goes up,
yeah, yeah.
and where does the
Impact,
third parameter goes?
the impact and influence.
No, I want to say if there are only two parameters, we can put one parameter on x-axis, other parameter on y-axis. But if there are three
Okay.
parameters, then x and y remain there. What about the third parameter? Where will we place it?
Um, honestly, I don't know.
On the z-axis. Are you aware
Ah,
about what
okay.
is z-axis? That is coming
No,
out of the paper, upwards,
okay.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that makes it a three-dimensional object, like it is shown in the bottom, like this. So here, on one axis there is power, on other axis there is interest, and third axis is the attitude. So we can have three parameters, and we probably now have just not the two axes. We will have only, as we had only four strategies in the case of two dimensions. Here, what happens is that we will have kind of four on every face, four on every face. That makes something like this. So, how many strategies will we have this way? Count the number of smaller cubes within the big cube. How many cubes are going to be there, Fatma?
It's going to be 12.
Can you see?
Sorry.
Okay. Can you see this one?
Okay.
This one is
Yeah.
one cube. This is one cube.
Yeah.
And this one is the second cube.
Yeah.
This
It's
one
8.
is the third. Yeah, exactly. Fourth cube, fifth cube, sixth cube, seventh cube, and eighth is hidden behind, lower down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is exactly what we do in third dimension. Although you may not be using the third dimension ever, but only in rare cases where we are dealing with a very sensitive project where your stakeholders might have to be judged on more than two parameters, and then you have to make decisions and create your strategy to deal with different groups of stakeholders. So in a cube, you will have 8 different strategies. Right. So this was what we covered yesterday. Let me move on and take you. Okay. What if there are 3 parameters? Although I have explained a bit about the the 2 dimensions, the 3 dimensions, but because it is a cube and it is kind of a lot, it leaves a lot to be imagined. It is not really easy for anyone to clearly anticipate how does the things move in a cube, because we can't see the cube right now in the third dimension. So there is another method of dealing with 3 parameters. We can demonstrate that in this Venn diagram, which is also called a salience model. Again, we have got 3 parameters. Each parameter is shown as a circle, and these 3 circles overlap each other. Can you see it clearly?
Yes.
Okay, the area which is just crossing the crossing over of 2 circles, like just a moment, like this area, right? This area is the blue circle and the purple circle are crossing at these points, right? Right? So
Mm-hmm.
you understand that where such overlap exists, that is the area where power is high and urgency is also high. But legitimacy is low here. Can you relate to that, Fatma?
Yeah.
Can you explain this area? What is happening
Um,
here?
it means that um, it has got a bit of power, and it has got a bit of legitimacy.
No. It is not the bit. The
Okay.
overlap means the power is high and
Mm-hmm.
legitimacy is both, they are both high. But because we are not talking about this section, so in this section, power is high and legitimacy high, urgency is low. The thing which is
Oh, okay.
not within this covered area, this much, these 2 things are high, but the third thing is low. Got it?
Yeah. It means that legitimacy is in the top priority for the mapping, and the level of authority or power is less important, right?
Mm-hmm. No,
Okay.
not less important. See, don't look at the coverage of the area, the whole circle.
Oh.
Whole circle means, every circle means that the area within the power circle is high. All the area within the legitimate circle is high in legitimacy. All the
Mhm.
area within urgency circle is high in urgency. Okay, talking from the power perspective, the purple circle is high and everything outside of purple circle is low in power. Do you now understand?
No, I'm
Low in
not
power.
getting this.
So power is high here, power is high here, power is high here, and power is high here, right?
Mm,
Can you understand that point?
yeah, I can.
Okay, good. So let me show where the power is high. I will again put a star. In whole of the purple circle,
Mm,
power is high here, 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 and here. These stars are for power, right? Now let me put hearts for legitimacy. So legitimacy is high here, high here, and high here, right?
mhm.
And what about the urgency? Urgency is high here, high here, high here, and high here. Do you see that?
Yeah, I can see.
So you can see that this area, just a moment.
So you are meaning that in the overlapping area, there are high power, high legitimacy, and high urgency, right?
This area, yes.
Oh, okay, yes,
Everything is high
the
here.
overlap. Mm-hmm.
Everything is high here. What is happening here? Only power is high.
Just, yeah,
In
power.
this area, power and legitimacy are high. In this area, urgency and legitimacy are high. This is
Mm-hmm.
urgency is high, and this is
Mm.
urgency and power both are high. Now you understand that.
Yeah,
And this is
now
the area, the outside, the white area, that is
there's the
low
power.
in everything. Low in everything. Low power, low urgency, low legitimacy. Right? Let us consider that outside area as another symbol I should show. Let us say this area, the white area, that is low in everything. This is all around. This is low in everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outside white space is low in power, legitimacy, and urgency. Okay. Now tell me, how many categories do we have? How many different categories do we have? Let's start counting from the middle. This is one
Okay.
category.
Yeah,
This is second. This is third. This is fourth.
seven
One,
category.
two, three, four, five, six, seven, and then the white space, eight.
Okay, eight categories. Yeah.
So how many smaller cubes were there in the bigger cube in three-dimensional model?
Eight.
So here you can see all of those eight areas. All of those eight areas are here, right? So it is easy to, understand who exercises what kind of power and what kind of strategy should I adopt, right? Now, let's talk about what kind of strategy should we have for each one of these eight areas. Okay, let me remove all the drawings. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not showing the camera, but I'm again switching it on. Actually, I can't see, so I don't know where the picture is. So that's why. Anyways, so this is the salient stakeholder queue. This the same thing which I just have shown you on the salience diagram or the Venn diagram can also be shown like a queue, although this is most accurate description or portrayal of the whole thing, and you can clearly see the 8 cubes within the big cube, and on one axis there is power, on one axis there is legitimacy, on one axis there is urgency, and if you want to see them clearly, just a moment. Okay, let me talk about the strategies, and then I'll get back to the cube thing. Because they are depiction of one and the same thing, I am just trying to show you the Venn diagram or the salience diagram as well as the cube. So right now, let's talk about the various strategies, 8 strategies. The strategy, first let's talk about the people who are only high in one area, right? That is 1, 2, and 3. One is they are high in power, and those who are high in power in this area, they are low in legitimacy and urgency, right? So such stakeholders are called dormant stakeholders. Then let's move on to the second, that is high in legitimacy and low in power and urgency. They are discretionary stakeholders. Third, high in urgency, low in power and legitimacy. They are demanding. So you see 3 categories of stakeholders who are only high in one area, power or legitimacy or urgency. So these stakeholders are, there is a collective name for them. Let me show you. This collective name for them is latent stakeholders. Those who are low in everything, they are collectively called non-stakeholders. Those who are high in only one area, they are generally called latent stakeholders. And in the previous diagram, who are the latent stakeholders? The red ones, 1, 2, and 3. So who are the latent stakeholders? Which is only high in power is dormant, which is only high in legitimacy is discretionary, who is only high in urgency, that is demanding. These 3 are latent stakeholders. Let's talk about then the area of overlap, which is high in 2 areas only. So their areas are 4, 5, and 6. They are collectively called expectant stakeholders. These are the people who are high in any of the 2 areas. And what are those? For example, 4 dominant stakeholders are those who are high in power, high in legitimacy, but low in urgency. This is the dominant stakeholder. Then we have dangerous stakeholder, which is high in power and high in urgency, but low in legitimacy. 6, dependent stakeholder, high in legitimacy, high in urgency, but low in power. So these 3 types, 4, 5, and 6, are collectively called expectant stakeholders. Then we are left with the middle. Middle is written number 7, that is definitive. These are called the collective. There's only one in the middle. So this is the core stakeholder, or you can call them the specifically anyone who is high in everything. They are definitive stakeholders. They are most important to us, right? And then the 8th, which is outside of all these circles, are those people who are low in power, low in urgency, low in legitimacy. They are generally considered as non-stakeholders, just like the category we said, just keep monitoring them. So rather, we don't need to take any action about them, but we have to watch them. So the main categories, the core is the definitive stakeholder, and then high in 2 areas is expectant stakeholders, high in one area are latent stakeholders, and which are low in everything, they are non-stakeholders. One in definitive, one in non-stakeholders, three in expectant, and three in latent. I hope you are getting what I'm saying.
Yes.
So this is how I can explain this, right? Definitive, having all three attributes, they are high in all. This is called a definitive stakeholder has a high salience. This is because it is called a salience model, whether it is cube salience or a Venn diagram shape, but they are the center, the definitive stakeholders have high salience. Expectant stakeholders have moderate salience because they are high in two areas and not the third area. And there are three types of stakeholders which we have seen as, who are they? High in two, 4, 5, and 6. Dominant, dangerous, and dependent. They are the expectant stakeholders. Then we have latent stakeholders. They are um, high in only one area, and they have low salience. And what are they? They are 1, 2, and 3, dormant, discretionary, and demanding. These three stakeholders are collectively called latent stakeholders. They are considered low salience. And then comes the no stakeholder, that is the lowest salience, where they are low in everything. So the next slide generally describes each one of the types, but anyway, this is the definitive stakeholder. If legitimacy is increasing on the right hand side, power is increasing upwards, and urgency outside of the paper, then this cube has every element high. This is that if you relate it with the salience, this is the high salience portion. Red one is high salience. This cube is high salience. These are the core stakeholders, or they can called as a definitive stakeholder. These are high in all. Right? Let us move on to expectant stakeholders. Expectant stakeholders were whom? They were having what kind of salience?
They have moderate salience, and they have three or two of the categories.
Yes, they are high in two areas, right? So these,
power.
they will appear like this. The definitive one we have seen, that was, this was the definitive one, which is no more
Sorry,
highlighted.
dominant is between urgency and legitimacy, isn't it?
Exactly. So we have got dominant, the yellow one, this green one is dangerous, and blue one is dependent. And it is clearly shown that dominant is high in power and legitimacy and low in urgency. Dependent is low in power. You can see on the grid of power, this dominant stakeholder is low. On this scale, this is low. But on the legitimacy scale, which is moving from here to here, it is high. And similarly, on the urgency scale, it is high, right? Okay. So dangerous one is high in power and high in urgency, but low in legitimacy. Got it?
The dependent is low in power. I thought it was
Dependent, yeah, you can
low
see
in
that.
urgency.
Okay,
I thought it was
just
low in urgency. No?
no. You can see it here, the blue one.
Yeah.
On the scale of power, which moves from this point upwards. Is it up or
Yeah.
down? This cube is up or down?
You go back to the Venn diagram where you have all these.
No. without looking at the Venn diagram, you tell me that, let me show you. This
Yeah,
cube,
because I'm relating to the Venn diagram, and yeah, probably I
these
didn't.
four cubes, top four cubes are high
Yeah,
in power, and bottom
correct.
four cubes are low
Lower
in power.
power. Yeah,
So this blue is low in power.
power. Yeah.
That is okay. You agree with that?
Yes. I'm just saying.
Okay. On the
I'm
scale
just.
of
I'm just saying.
legitimacy, on the scale of legitimacy, is it low or high? It's
Um,
legitimacy starts from here, it goes
High.
this way. So the four cubes at the back
Yeah, it's high.
on the
Sorry.
left
High,
hand
high,
side, they are low, and these four cubes are high. So yellow and blue cube is high in legitimacy. Got it? Similarly, if you look at it from the urgency point of view, the back four cubes, this one, and this one, these four cubes are low in urgency, but this blue one and green one are upwards, outside of the paper. They are high in urgency. Now you understand? Alexandra, are you with me?
Yeah, and just
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I understand, but I think Kelvin had a question.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Right. And then we talk about the green cube,
yes. If you can
which,
please come back to the Venn diagram, because
okay,
because
yeah, this is exactly the same depiction, right?
yes. So dependent here, which is the number
Mhm.
6,
Yeah,
is low
dependent
in power.
is low in power,
You see that?
exactly. So dependent is low
So
in
it's
power.
high on legitimacy.
Hmm.
Sorry. Yeah. I got you. I have my bad. Okay,
And
good.
here,
My bad.
where is dependent?
I
This
got
is dependent. This
confused the
is
power and
dependent.
urgency.
Here it is low power, high legitimacy, high urgency.
Or
I
understood.
do understand it is a bit difficult to visualize things in three dimension, right? Because we are in habit of looking at a flat paper, which is only having two dimension. Although we can make a model or a picture in three dimension on a piece of paper, but because being an engineer, I know that when we are making drawings of learning to make the drawings, some of the people have got a lot of difficulty when I ask them what is behind this, right? So they always do mistake in understanding, in trying to contemplate what is behind this room or what is behind this wall. They can't draw a cross section. I hope you understand my point. So that is natural. That is not it's difficult to visualize things in three dimension. Okay, now you can see all the expectant stakeholders which are high in everything. Okay, if you're okay with this, let me move on to this was the dominant. If you want to discuss it, you want to understand it, this yellow cube is shown alone, right? On power side, it is upwards, so high in power. On legitimacy side, it is towards the high side. Again, it is high in legitimacy. But on the urgency side, this cube is kind of back. Front, it is not in front, it is in back, right? That's why it is low in urgency. Got it? This green one, that is high in power, yes. In power, we are upwards. Legitimacy, it is low because it could have been in this area if it was to be high, right? That would have become definitive if this is the legitimacy was also high. It would have come here and then it would have been definitive. But because it is low in legitimacy and high in other two things, this green one is dangerous. And the third expectant was the blue one, lower one. It is low in power. Why? Because on the axis of the power, it is lower down towards the zero side. So this is low in power, but on legitimacy side, it is on the higher side. And on the urgency side, it is also high. Okay. So these are the three expectant stakeholders. Let us move on. And this is the definitive. Now we have studied definitive and we have talked about the three expectant stakeholders, which are dangerous, dormant, and dependent. Now we have got four cubes covered, four smaller cubes covered. There are other four cubes which we have to discuss. And where they are all backwards of them. Let us see. Those are called, first of all, those which are high in only one area, they are called latent stakeholders, and they are dormant, discretionary, and demanding. Let us look at them. These are the three. Purple one is high in power. You can see it nearer to the upper side, high in power, but this is low on this axis, and it is low on this axis also. So low in legitimacy, low in urgency, high in power. This stakeholder is called what? A dormant stakeholder. Only high in one thing, which is power, and low in legitimacy and urgency, the purple one. The bright green one on the bottom left, you can see this is called a demanding stakeholder. It is, you see, it is on the higher side of urgency. So this is high in urgency, but power low, legitimacy low. This is a demanding stakeholder. And then we have got the bright blue cube on the right hand side, and that is called discretionary stakeholder. High in legitimacy, low in power, and low in urgency. You understand these three cubes which are high in only one area. Got it? A dormant one, this is the dormant one. This is the discretionary one, and this is the demanding one. Going back, you can understand that? Can you make sense out of it? And then we
Yes.
have the eighth stakeholder at the back, at the bottom, the cube which is hidden away, that is the non-stakeholder, low in everything, low in power, low in legitimacy, low in urgency. They are considered to be non-stakeholder. You just have to keep an eye on them if they change their position. Otherwise, you don't really need to take any action about them. So this is how the whole picture makes. This is your big cube, and this is what this red one is. Can someone tell me the name of this stakeholder?
Definitive.
Definitive. And this is in the core category, right? Okay. What about this green, golden, and dark blue? What are they? These three are called what?
Expectant.
Expectant. And their names are these are their names are these: dangerous, dormant, and dependent, right? And then we have got latent stakeholders, which are high in only one area, and they are these ones: dormant, demanding, and discretionary. And then we have the non-stakeholder. That makes the whole picture. Are you comfortable with this idea? I don't want to make your life difficult, but I just wanted to make you understand you may not use this three-dimensional model ever in your life. But if at all you are in a very critical situation, stakeholders are very important, project is very critical, you can't rely on a two-dimensional model. You just can't have four strategies to deal with all the stakeholders. The number of stakeholders is too big, and there are at least three areas in which you can evaluate them, and they all are equally important. Only then you will be using this method. Otherwise, the two-dimensional model is easier and it is commonly used. There is another way of depicting the three-dimensional model. Two ways I have already shown you. One is the cube, this is the three dimensions, and the other one was the Venn diagram, the salience model, which I said, which actually show the same thing. But there could be a third method, and that could be, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just a moment, I think I have to reshare the thing with you. Tell me if you can see the screen.
Yet.
No? You can see it.
No.
Not yet.
Okay. The problem is that no, I can't see it. Okay, okay.
Keep trying, we tell you.
Actually, there is a setting problem somewhere.
My dad used to say, the problem is between the screen and the chair.
Say again.
My dad used to say, the problem is between the screen and the chair.
Yep, yep. Okay, now I am trying to show the salience model in the
We
bubble.
cannot see your screen, huh?
Yes?
We cannot see your screen.
You cannot see my screen now?
No.
Oh my God.
We see the problem.
Mm-hmm. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You may not see my cursor, but I will be moving on. So here what you can see is another method, a third method of showing the same thing, and that is called bubble chart. Now in a bubble chart, we try to make life a bit easier for you to understand, and rather than moving the things in the third axis, I'm trying to visualize it from top down. And I'm standing on the top of the paper, right? And naturally, the X and Y axes are very visible to me. All the movement in X and Y direction is on the paper. From left to right is my X axis, from bottom to up, upwards on the paper, not outside of the paper, upwards on the paper. That is my second axis. And where is my third axis? Outside of the paper, towards my eyes. So what happens is those things which are far away from me, like stars, they will appear small. And if the thing is on nearer to my eye, that starts becoming bigger, like a planet which is like moon, which is nearer to the earth, that appears like a big sphere. A star which might be much bigger, but it actually appears small. So basically what I'm trying to say is, let us assume those things which are nearer to your eye upwards, outside of the paper, they will appear as larger bubbles, right? Those which are far away from you, they will appear as smaller bubbles or a dot. Got it? Right? Let me show you. I don't know if I can move in the slide. Tell me if the slide moved.
Yes.
Okay. So you can see the same three-dimensional model, power on one side, urgency on one side, and what was the third thing? Yeah, power on the y-axis, legitimacy on the x-axis, and on the z-axis, we are not actually showing things like we have shown in a cube, but we are saying anything which is bigger is a bigger bubble. Anything which is low in urgency, that is a smaller circle. High in urgency is a bigger circle. So what are the big circles here? The definitive. If something which is high in urgency is a big bubble, then the definitive is located in the area which is high in power and high in legitimacy also. So this definitive bubble is core, right? Those which are high in two areas would be found where these big bubbles in each one of the other quadrants, right? Demanding, dependent, and dangerous. Got it? These three bubbles are what? What kind of stakeholders are they? Dangerous, demanding, and dependent, which are high in two
Expectant.
areas, right? These are expectant stakeholders. Then we have got these smaller bubbles, like now this bubble, non-stakeholder, is low in everything, so let's forget about it. But this green, this purple, and this green, they are dormant, dominant, and discretionary. Which are, what is about discretionary? It is high on legitimacy, right? It is high on legitimacy, but other two areas is low. So only high in one area, and that is only legitimacy. This is discretionary stakeholder. Then this stakeholder, dominant one, that is low in urgency, right? But high in power, right? And sorry, that was dominant. We have already discussed that. High in power and high in legitimacy. But urgency, it is low, this dominant one. So this is too high in two, but because urgency is the third dimension, it is small from that perspective. Anyways, do you understand what I'm trying to say here? All the 9 categories are shown here. You see non-stakeholder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All the 9 categories could be shown in form of bubble chart. I do understand that even bubble chart, although it makes sense, but because it is also kind of three-dimensional, so again, it might be slightly difficult for some of the people to anticipate, right? But that is exactly why I am telling you all the 3 models. All are actually depicting the same thing. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, can you see this summary? It gives you all the categories, the major categories. All the stakeholder categories are here. under the main headings of core stakeholders, we have only one definitive. Under the heading of expectant stakeholder, we have got dominating, dangerous, and dependent. Under the category of latent, we have got demanding, discretional, and dormant. And under the category of non-stakeholders, we have only one. The interesting thing is, we have got orientation for each one of them, and then our engagement strategy created in the next column. So let's see, how do we deal with our core, our definitive stakeholder? That is high in everything, so they are naturally the most important stakeholders for us, right? They need focused attention. This is your strategy with them to deal with the definitive stakeholder. You should give them focused attention, close management, keep them always satisfied, and keep them informed. So they are very important to us, right? Now let's look at the expectant stakeholders. The first one is dominating, which is high in power. High in power. The power means that order initiates from this person. He is in control. Legitimacy. He has the legal authority as well. Whatever he wants to do, he has got high legal authority. But he doesn't have any urgency, right? So such a stakeholder would be dominating decision maker from both points of view, from the management point of view and from the legitimacy point of view. But as such, they are not in a hurry. But they are very important stakeholders, and they have to be dealt just like the definitive: focus attention, close management, keep them satisfied, and keep them informed. As far as the dangerous stakeholder is concerned, why is it dangerous? They yield a lot of power, but they do not have any legal authority to do what they want. But they are in a lot of hurry. They are always urgently requiring it. Now, why they are dangerous? Because they are in management position, though they don't have any legal authority, they are in management, in control, and at the same time, they feel this job should be done. And probably they may ignore legitimacy and try to break the law. Against the law, they will try to do by hook or by crook. So they are therefore very dangerous. They are nuisance. They are potentially harmful. They can break the law. So how to deal with them? Manage them very cautiously. Just keep them cool, keep them satisfied, and don't let them cross their limits, which is the legal limit, the legitimacy. Keep reminding them that they don't have to cross the line. So these dangerous stakeholders could be many, and you have to be very patient with them.
That's the guy. That's the guy that I mentioned the other day. That is in the project trying to find problems.
Yep.
So ridiculous the way this guy works.
Exactly.
But this is a nice table.
And then let's talk about the dependent stakeholder, which is naturally an expectant category. This guy doesn't have any power, right? He's not the manager. He doesn't have the he's not the lead. He's not leading the show, right? He could be a team member, right? So he is dependent on what? He does have a legitimacy. He is trying to do something legal, and he is in a lot of hurry as well. But naturally, until and unless there is power, somebody allows him to do this job, until that point, this guy is dependent. So he doesn't have power. So he is dependent on whomsoever holds the power. Although he is in a lot of hurry, and although he is high in legal, whatever he is asking for is very legal, is very legitimate, and he is also in a lot of urgency, but somebody has to approve what he wants to do. So this is a dependent stakeholder, and they are always prone to realignment. Whenever they will propose that this thing should be done, this is very urgent, then they may be given an answer, they may be realigned, they may be told, no, this cannot be done now, please wait for some time, or maybe other things are important, so we will give your approval when it is suitable. So they are prone to alignment, realignment. So how you as a project manager deal with them? They may be your team members. Keep them informed. Always keep them informed that this case is change request is with the change control board and we are waiting for the response. Although it is in a lot of hurry, but you see the change control board meets only once a week or once a month. So we have to wait for the next meeting, things like that. So you have to keep them informed and cool.
These are the guys that I have in my emails, unread emails.
Yeah. You keep telling them, oh, this will be done, and they say,
Nothing,
okay.
not even paying, zero attention. So yeah, this is the Chihuahua making noise, and that's it.
Yep.
It's parked there. So because they don't
Exactly.
have any power making noise. So yeah.
No, I'll show you the noisy one in the next category. It's a very noisy one. In the latent category, we have got a demanding stakeholder. This is the noisy one. This is the noisy one. He is always saying, I am important. This job is urgent. Please do only this job, nothing else. But he doesn't have any power. He doesn't have any legitimacy. They are very demanding.
Yeah,
So they need immediate action. They are unnecessary important seekers. They just want, be highlighted. They just want to be heard all the time. So I won't say they are dangerous, but yes, you have to monitor them with care, just like you cool down a child, right? Exactly like that. Deal them like a child. Keep, engaging them. Keep telling them, keep giving them a lot of care, but naturally managing them and engaging them. Then comes the discretional stakeholder. Now, this is a very interesting stakeholder. He has all the legal authority. He may be the judge of the court, but he doesn't, until you present a case to the judge, he doesn't have any power to give an order. So naturally, there is somebody else at the helm of affairs who, if they want, they can bring the case to this person who has got a lot of authority. They're like what do you call them? Arbitrators in a project. An arbitrator doesn't involve himself in daily decision making, but when the matter is stuck, both parties come to the arbitrator to make a decision for them. This is the person who holds a lot of legitimacy, no power, and no urgency. Right? So they are very discretional. Only when you present the case to me, then I will decide. And urgency is also dictated by that case. So it is all legal. So they are very good stakeholders because they don't bother you. The arbitrator keeps sitting down in his office and he doesn't say, why do you not bring any cases to me? Why don't you have any conflicts? He doesn't ask you that. So he's a good stakeholder. Interfere only in case of problem. Otherwise, they are very cool. So we have got to manage them only at a macro level. Just keep passing by their office and see if they're sitting all right. They have no problems. Just keep an eye on them. Keep giving them regular statuses of all the cases which they have solved and what might be coming their way in future, and any reports and returns they need. Then we have got the dormant stakeholder who has a lot of power, who can decide, who is actually like the sponsor of the project, the director of the project, a lot of power, but no legitimate authority and no urgency. Now, this is also very interesting because if I am the president of a country, I have all the power. But, you know, until and unless, the parliament forwards a case to me, I'm not in position to order them around. So I have got a lot of power, but no legitimacy until someone asks me to issue that order, or I have no urgency. Urgency also comes from elsewhere. So this is a dormant stakeholder. They have no needs. They do not bother you. So you just have to keep an eye on them. That's all. And non-stakeholders, you already know, there is no action recommended except for just watching them if they change their position from a non-stakeholder to any other category. So as any of the stakeholders move from their own category to another category, we will start dealing them according to the engagement strategy of that category. Right. So how do you feel about all this?
Pretty useful.
Actually, I realize that it might be slightly difficult to capture. Sometimes it becomes difficult to understand. But if you understand it, it is very, very interesting because your real life scenarios are fully covered as you deal with your stakeholders. There is another cube which I came across in one of the case studies which was created by some PhD students. Their thesis was on that, and they came up with a different model of stakeholder cube in which it is not the legitimacy and power and urgency, but they did it with power, interest, and attitude. And that is exactly the kind of cube which I have shown you as an example in the beginning. So these students did it, but the interesting point about this is that attitude. If you have got a lot of attitude, is it a good trait or a bad trait? Yes, please. Anyone? Calvin?
It could be somehow very volatile,
Very
volatile,
positive or negative?
no negative.
You have got a lot of attitude.
Because
This is
they're
a
kind of, very impulsive people, with a lot of attitude.
exactly my point. A lot of attitude a lot of attitude means a negative trait that is bad, right? If a person has no attitude, then we are very comfortable with him because he doesn't have any prohibitions, right? Anything you do, he doesn't mind. But on the other hand, a person with a high attitude would be considered negative. So in this cube, what you are seeing, power, interest, and attitude is where? On the z-axis, right? I don't know how to point to that, but you can see outside of the paper, which is coming the z-axis, that is attitude. And I told you the high attitude is not good. Low attitude is good. So in a way, all the high attitudes are on the outside of the paper, and therefore, they all four cubes in front of you are dangerous. What are they? Like a person who is high in attitude, high in power, and high in interest. High in power and interest, we don't mind. But high in attitude, if such a person with high power and high interest is high in attitude, that is very bad. That makes him a saboteur, right? That is what do you call them? The people who kill themselves, right? Along with others. Then we have got a person who is high in power, but he doesn't have a lot of interest, but he has got a lot of attitude. So what are two things high? Power is high and attitude is very high, right? And there is no interest. So such a person is a living time bomb, although he is not likely to explode, but only if he gets interested into the thing, he will, there's a high tendency that he will explode. So he's a time bomb. Okay. A person who is high in interest, a lot of interest, no power, but a lot of attitude also. So they can't do anything bad, but they are just like the botherers, like we had the demanding stakeholder. This is that kind of stakeholder who is an irritant. He always keeps irritating you, right? So this is that kind. And then a person who is high in attitude, no power, no interest. So they are just a tripwire. It is like a person that you don't want to talk to because whenever you talk to him, he bites back. He is a tripwire. So better avoid this kind of a person. Now let's talk about the good categories which are behind. Let's start with the sleeping giant. Sleeping giant, no attitude, very good. High power, okay. And no interest. No interest. This is a sleeping giant. This is just like, like the category we had where the power was high and no urgency, no legitimacy. So we said this is a good stakeholder. He doesn't cause any problem. So this is a sleeping giant. But if you can wake this giant and ask him to, to do something, he will do it. But by himself, he's not going to bother anyone. So he's a sleeping giant. Okay, what about a person who has got high power, high interest, no attitude? Probably this is the best kind of stakeholder I could think of. He has power, he has interest, he is the most important stakeholder, and he doesn't have any attitude. That is great. Savior. Then we have got a stakeholder who is kind of high in interest, low in power, and no attitude at all. So, what is this? This is like a friend, he doesn't have any power. He can't order me around. He doesn't have any attitude. I am not really bothered by that person. But he has a lot of interest. So it is someone who takes interest in whatever you do, right? That is your friend. The last category is like the behind is kind of equivalent to a non-stakeholder. That is an acquaintance, no attitude whatsoever, no power, no interest. Good to know. They are nice people. They don't bother me. I just, I don't need to have any strategy about them. They are the people I know. They are my stakeholders. That's all. I don't have to do anything about them. They are my acquaintances. I hope this sheds a new light on the whole scenario, but this is a different way of representing the stakeholder cube. I leave it to you to decide if at all you are ever to use a stakeholder cube. You can choose your own parameters. You don't have to be using the power, urgency, and legitimacy, or power, interest, and our attitude. But because these two methods are very well researched, I would highly recommend that you can use them. But if at all you can invent your own cube, I don't mind. But that is a subject of a complete research altogether. You can't just do it all by yourself. You see, this is a PhD thesis by some of the students who created this diagram. I hope you are with me on all that.
Yeah.
Okay. We
It
can
is
have.
also very subjective, you know,
Mhm.
because it depends on the interpretation that you do to the people, you know, people's
Exactly.
behaviors, and you
Yeah.
place them in certain, you know, category.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think it's good to do this exercise
Yes.
in a group, not
Exactly. Of course.
because it can change. I mean, the perception can change from one person to the other, and probably the
Exactly.
experience that you have with that people, I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
that's exactly why I said that these two methods which I have just shown you, one with attitude and the other one with the legitimacy and urgency, they are well tested methods, right? You don't have
yeah,
to rehash your own strategy altogether, right? But if at all you want to do it, then it is not only a matter of sitting in a group. This is supposed to be a deep research you have to do. Maybe you have spent some time on it. I don't disallow you, but at the same time, I would caution you that this might take a lot of time in understanding because it may be far more than what you are doing in your project, right? But anyways, I keep it open to you. Maybe at your organization level, you people decide that for our projects, this is the organizational problem. For our project, we want to devise our own stakeholder cube. And then you carry out a research. And then once you have created the definitions for that, then you can teach all your staff, all your program managers, how to do the stakeholder analysis according to this cube. But the two cubes I knew of, I have shown you how they work. Okay, we can have a little break here. Uh, Maybe about how much time? 10 minutes is okay with you? Yes, please.
yes.
Okay, we
Yes.
have a break for 10 minutes and then we will be back. Sorry.